You work your whole life, save what you can, invest smartly, pay your taxes. You follow the rules because that's what you're told builds wealth. Then one day, you find out someone else, someone with a private jet and a family office, doesn't play by those rules at all. In fact, their wealth strategy is built on avoiding them. This is the quiet engine behind many fortunes. Buy, borrow, die. It's not a headline. It's not a loophole your accountant mentioned. It's a decades-old system that lets the ultra-wealthy live lavishly without ever having to realize income, and therefore, without paying income tax. Legal? Yes. Accessible to most people? Absolutely not. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most effective and least talked about wealth strategies in modern finance, where it came from, how it works, and why it's only available if you're already rich. Let's break it down. To understand how buy, borrow, die works, we have to start with a simple concept. The U.S. tax system doesn't tax wealth. It taxes income. That distinction is everything. If you work a 9 to 5 and earn $100,000 a year, the IRS gets a cut. But if you own $100 million in assets, say stocks, real estate, or fine art, but don't sell them, you might not owe anything. That's because unrealized gains or increases in value on paper aren't taxed until you sell. And selling triggers capital gains taxes. So the wealthy avoid selling. And that's where this system starts to take shape. Let's walk through each part of the strategy. Part 1. Buy. This is the foundation. The rich don't get rich from salaries. They accumulate assets, stocks, businesses, property. They buy things that go up in value over time and generate income without being sold. Take Jeff Bezos. He doesn't make his billions from an Amazon paycheck. His net worth is tied almost entirely to Amazon stock. As the stock value rises, so does his wealth, without a taxable event. He doesn't need to sell shares to get cash, and he definitely doesn't want to. Selling means taxes. So instead, he holds. For the wealthy, asset accumulation is step 1. But once you've bought the asset and its value starts climbing, how do you turn that into money you can actually spend without triggering a tax bill? Part 2. Borrow. This is the heart of the strategy, and it's where things get clever. Let's say you own $100 million in tech stocks. You want $5 million to buy a mansion or fund your lifestyle. Instead of selling your shares, which would trigger a capital gains tax, you go to a private bank and take out a loan using your stock as collateral. You might pay 4% in interest, depending on the terms. But that loan isn't taxable. The IRS doesn't see borrowed money as income. It's a liability. You're not richer on paper. You're just temporarily liquid. This might sound risky, but for billionaires, it's routine. Banks love lending to the wealthy. The assets used as collateral, like shares of Apple or Tesla, are usually strong enough to back low-interest loans, sometimes with flexible repayment options. Some banks even offer interest-only loans, meaning the principal doesn't have to be paid back immediately, or sometimes at all. To make this clearer, take Elon Musk. In 2021, it was revealed that Musk had borrowed billions against his Tesla shares. Why sell and pay taxes when he could just borrow and live off the loans? It's the same reason Warren Buffett pays a lower effective tax rate than his secretary. It's not magic, it's design. The borrowed money can be used for anything. Homes, jets, investments, campaign donations, even charity. It lets the rich live like kings without ever earning a cent, at least in the way the IRS defines it. But what about debt? Here's the thing. For most people, debt is a burden. But for the rich, it's a tool. When you have appreciating assets and access to cheap credit, debt becomes a way to unlock value without ever losing control of what you own. Plus, interest on these loans is often tax deductible, especially when the money is used for investment purposes. So not only are you not paying income tax, but the interest you do pay might reduce your tax bill elsewhere. It's wealth alchemy. And the final step is what makes it generational. Part 3. Die. Eventually, everyone dies, even billionaires. But even here, the game is rigged in their favor. When someone dies holding appreciated assets, those assets get what's called a step-up in basis. This means the cost basis of the asset is adjusted to its value at the time of death. Say your grandfather bought a beach house for $200,000 that's now worth $5 million. If he sold it before dying, he'd owe capital gains tax on the $4.8 million profit. But if he holds it until death, the basis steps up to $5 million. When you inherit it, you can sell it immediately and owe zero capital gains tax. So, the wealthy pass down assets instead of cash. The heirs get the property, art, businesses, or stock portfolios tax-free, sometimes wrapped inside trusts, foundations, or shell companies to avoid estate taxes as well. It's a full cycle. Buy assets that appreciate. Borrow against them to avoid taxes. Die and let your heirs inherit everything without the IRS ever touching it. The system was built this way. This isn't a glitch in the system. It's the system working exactly as designed. Many of the tax laws we use today were built in the early 20th century, when wealth looked different. There were fewer billionaires, and capital markets weren't accessible to average people. The tax code was written with the assumption that income equals wealth. But for the modern rich, that's not true anymore. Over the last few decades, as asset prices have soared, the richest Americans have gotten even better at exploiting the gap between real wealth and taxable income. That's why people like Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire, were able to grow Roth IRAs into multi-billion-dollar tax-free accounts. Or why Mark Zuckerberg took a $1 salary while borrowing against his Facebook stock to fund everything else. These aren't loopholes in the traditional sense. They're deeply embedded in how wealth is taxed, favoring those who already own capital over those who earn wages. A 2021 ProPublica investigation into the tax records of the ultra-rich revealed just how effective this strategy is. Between 2014 and 2018, the 25 wealthiest Americans grew their collective wealth by $401 billion. Over that period, they paid just $13.6 billion in federal income tax. That's an effective rate of 3.4%, a fraction of what most middle-class Americans pay. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Michael Bloomberg, they all used a version of buy, borrow, die. They report little to no income, borrow for liquidity, and watch their net worth climb, tax-free. Meanwhile, regular people pay income tax on every paycheck. They borrow for cars and homes at higher interest rates. They don't get to deduct the interest. And when they die, they might leave behind debt, not a trust fund. Can regular people use this? Not really. That's what makes this system so frustrating and so invisible. To use buy, borrow, die effectively, you need three things. Assets that appreciate significantly over time. Access to low-interest, high-value loans. Enough wealth that you never need to sell. Most people can't meet all three conditions. The strategy scales after you're already wealthy. That said, some financial planners use pieces of it for high net worth clients, borrowing against home equity, tax loss harvesting, or passing on appreciated assets to heirs. But the full version? That's reserved for the top 0.01%. There have been proposals to close this gap. President Biden has pushed for a billionaire minimum tax that would apply to unrealized gains over a certain threshold. Others have proposed eliminating the step-up in basis rule or taxing inherited wealth more aggressively. But changing the rules is politically difficult. Many lawmakers are wealthy themselves. Lobbyists representing financial firms, real estate, and tech fight hard to preserve the status quo. And the public? Often too overwhelmed by day-to-day struggles to worry about how billionaires finance their lifestyle. Still, the conversation is changing. As income inequality grows and more Americans realize just how little tax the ultra-rich actually pay, there's more pressure than ever to rethink the system. But until that happens, buy, borrow, die remains one of the most powerful financial maneuvers in existence. Completely legal, incredibly effective, and out of reach for most. Here's the part that sticks. The average person can't opt into buy, borrow, die, not because they lack ambition, but because the system was never designed for them. It rewards ownership over effort, patience over paychecks, and inherited capital over individual hustle. If you're not already wealthy, the doors don't even open. But maybe the bigger question isn't how this works. It's why we allow it to. We live in a society where the richest can legally pay less in taxes than a teacher or a nurse, simply by shifting numbers on a balance sheet. And we've normalized it. We've made tax efficiency a virtue and questioned whether billionaires should even exist. Yet the machine keeps running, quietly, behind every IPO, every generational estate, every luxury skyscraper owned through a trust in Delaware. Still, understanding this system matters. Because you can't change what you can't see. Whether you're just trying to build a stable financial future or pushing for a tax code that doesn't treat billionaires like a protected species, knowledge is leverage. These aren't just money tricks. They're reflections of deeper values in our economy. And while buy, borrow, die may be out of reach for most, it's not invisible anymore. If this gave you a clearer picture of how wealth really works and who it really works for, consider subscribing. We break down the hidden mechanics of finance, power, and policy so you can see the full board, not just your square. Thanks for watching. And remember, in a system that rewards silence, understanding is a form of resistance.